All right. Okay, this is the first time we're going to try a live stream here. And I'm going to set some things up really quick. And let me detach my chat here. I think that's going to work. All right. So I'm not expecting anyone to show up. I'm recording this really late in the evening for me, and otherwise it'll just probably be anyone who is international showing up on this stream. Hello, my name is Matt Petrowski. I'm live streaming this video, so it's being recorded live as I shoot this, and what we're going to be taking a look at is we're going to be looking at some progress indicators. If you're interested, you like anything that I have in this video, then you can, of course, go to my website, FileMaker Magazine, right down. That's right down there, FileMakerMagazine.com. I've got other videos and content. If you're here on YouTube and you like the video, then please subscribe. It helps me out, and let's get to the content. So we are going to be taking a look at some great looking progress indicators. We're using web viewers for some awesome looking indicators. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at. So let's take a switch to my desktop here. And there we go. All right. Oh, looks like we've got somebody in California that is watching. They are up late at night. Hey, Chris, how's it going? One thing that I'll do is let's see if my chat will show up here. No, the chat's not showing up quite yet. I need to see if I can work on that. It's that area that you see over there to the, what is it, right there? The chat. I want to get that working. Again, this is all me just actually playing around with this video capture equipment. But you're probably not interested in me playing with the video capture equipment. Let's take a look at what we're going to be learning. So I'm going to switch over to FileMaker here. Now, the first thing that we're interested in when it comes to progress indicators is we want to be able to show what's happening, or the fact that something is happening when a longer running script is actually running. So here I have a file called Motion Effects, and you're going to be able to follow along if you'd like. In fact, I suggest that you do. This is a follow along series where I'm going to be showing a file, and then you can actually follow along with what we're doing. That's the best way to learn. I love learning in that way. I could give you the file and you could dig in, but it's much easier if you're just going to follow along with me. So if you want, you can go up to your file menu, create a new solution, and then we'll get this started. So the first thing that we're going to do for a progress indicator is we're not going to create one ourselves by hand. We are going to actually borrow one from a website. There's tons of websites that make them. I'll show you two websites in particular where you can just get them, copy them, and put them into FileMaker. Now, the method that we're going to use in order to display them is a web viewer. In fact, the button that we'll see right here that I have called Display It, when I click this, this web viewer shows this progress indicator, and you can see that it shows there just for a short little while, and then it disappears. So we're displaying it. Our script would be running for a period of time, and then it would stop. So it's very easy to get these into FileMaker, and in particular into a web viewer. There's multiple ways that you can do this. But first, we need to get the actual graphic, and we need to convert it into base 64. Now, FileMaker will do this for us. All we have to do is go to the source where we actually want the progress indicator. So I'm going to switch over to Safari here. And the website that we have right here, let me switch over. There we go. This website is basically called, it's loading.io. Let me throw that up on screen for you. If you want to follow along, copy that and show that on screen. So it's HTTPS. Loading.io is one of the websites you can go to. There is one other website, which is preloaders.net, and that's going to be at HTTPS preloaders.net. Now, both of these websites, they offer all of their animations in multiple different formats, and it's important that we pay attention to the formats because we typically want things to work cross-platform in FileMaker Pro. We want them to work on Windows and on Mac. So what you're going to see is on a lot of these websites, what they're going to actually have are SVG versions of the progress indicators. Now, SVG, it works great in Safari. It'll work great on your FileMaker Go solutions, but it may not work in older versions of FileMaker, and it depends on whether FileMaker has updated in FileMaker 16 their actual embedded web viewer. Let me switch to layout mode here. Here's our web view right here. On Macintosh, this web viewer actually uses WebKit or Safari. It's embedded into FileMaker. It's not using the engine from the operating system, so FileMaker embeds that in. And then on Windows, they embed the IE engine. I don't know that it's Edge or what it is, but what happens is SVGs may not work on the Windows side of things. So if you're going to do this, if you're creating a Go application or if you're creating a Mac application, then I say go for the SVG because it's much easier to integrate. But if you want the surefire method of a progress indicator working on both platforms or all platforms, then a GIF is the way that you're going to need to go. Now, a GIF is going to be a lot larger than an SVG. SVG is just a little bit of text. We'll take a look at that. A GIF is going to be binary data that we actually need to get into the into the web viewer. So the first thing that we know is we're going to be storing a GIF. So you can see right here that I've created a GIF item, or a container, I should say. Now this container is what we're going to need. These are all the fields that we're actually interested in. We need a container that is our GIF. Then we're going to use a base 64, which is going to be an unstored calculation. And in this particular case, I'm using FileMaker 16, where we are going to base 64 encode this. And we're using the new version, which includes this RFC. So there is a base 64 encode function, I believe in FileMaker 14, maybe even 13, that allows you to encode a file into base 64. Now, anytime you encode something into base 64, it increases the size of the file by about 1/3. And you can see right here that this base 64 encode RFC, we're using a format of 4648. That's just an internal number. It's the RFC number, and that will convert it without any returns. And then finally, we just have a regular result field. So if you want to add those to your database, those are all the fields we need, and this is all just so that we can convert the actual icon that we're going to get hold of. So it's pretty much just the one table. I called my file motion effects, so it called the first table motion effects. Doesn't matter what the table name is called. You can call your table anything. Once you've got those fields, you can put them on the layout, and I just did that by adding all the squares here. And also, since we are live streaming, if you would like, and you're on the live stream right now, there's a few people, you can actually send in a chat message, and I'll be watching for those chat messages if you have any questions. So we've got the GIF field here. We've got the base 64, which is going to be the unstored converted calculation, and then we've got our result. So now let's go take a look and grab any of the indicators that we want to use. So hopefully you've been able to add those. If you're watching this after the live stream, you can of course pause the video and go through things. I like loading.io. Now loading.io is all the websites want to charge you. Right here on the front facing surface, you can actually get the GIF right here. Let me open up my mouse posé so I can highlight that. There we go. You can get the GIF right there or the SVG. CSS you probably won't want to get. But what we're going to do is we're going to grab this one right here. Now, Loading.io has a number of other items. In fact, you can see right here, if you click on this link, need more, check our complete loader category. When you click on this and it goes to all of these other items, these are the ones that when you click on them and then they load, and then you click on I want to get the GIF. On this particular website, it's going to come up with the, hey, you've got to pay. They want $2 for each of these little icons. While I'd love to support the website for all the work that they've done, paying $2 for an icon is just not something I'm super interested in doing. So we're just going to be using the free one. Hey, Louie's on screen, and Eden. What are you guys doing up? This is pretty fun. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to this main site. So again, if you want to pay for them individually, you can. I like hunting out for free resources. It's a lot, I don't know, easier to get. But if you want to support for the $1.99 or the $2 for here. But we're just going to have to get it off of the main screen on loading IO. So the cool thing about this is you can control the size of the GIF within HTML. You don't need to necessarily make a small GIF version here on the site. In fact, it's actually better if you make a larger version and then scale it down in HTML, because then it will work really well on Retina. So for example, I can actually increase the height of these to something like 27. I'll increase the radius to something like 10, or actually that's not what I wanted, not the radius. Let's see what the offset does. You can basically play around here with all the different settings, changing all the different values, changing the color to whatever you want, purple. I'm not going to spend too much time trying to get this too perfect. Now that we've got this little icon, I'm going to click Get Make GIF. It's going to make that for me. Hey, Steven, how's it going? All right, click download. Once that's downloaded, then we're able to basically grab that. So I'm just going to reveal it right here in my downloads folder. I'll move that off screen and go back to my FileMaker, and actually back to my FileMaker, and hide everything else. And let me bring up that right there. And we will bring up the Finder so I can drag that in. So I'm going to create a new record now in my database that has all of these items, and I'm simply going to drag that item or that download that I had, that default GIF, right into this container field. Now the cool thing is it's going to convert this for us. It's going to convert it into the base 64. You can see that that's all happening right here. Base 64 is all that gobbledygook looking text, which goes on and on and on forever. In this case, it's actually pretty small, but we need to now put this into a format that makes it possible to show it within the web viewer. Now, there's multiple ways that you can do this. CSS will allow you to add an image as a background image, but the most simple method for adding an image is to actually just add an image tag. And the image tag, we are going to then be able to control the size of that. As I mentioned, the larger the better, because we can always make it get smaller, and when it's smaller and we show on a Retina screen, it will actually look really good. Now I have this Get It button, and I'll tell you what the Get It is going to do, because you want to follow along and probably put this in your database as well. So far, all you have is 3 fields: your container, your unstored calculation, and then just your plain text field. The trick here is when I go into layout mode, you can see as I zoom in, this is really a simple string of text. And I love doing this technique in FileMaker because it allows you to combine multiple different elements into code or into HTML or into text just by using merge values. So you can see right here I've created this text block. That's all it is, using the text tool. And my text right here is basically using a merge field. And that merge field is right here where it's got these greater than, less than, these double signs. And as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm simply just referencing the contents of this field. Now, all I'm using this file for is simply to convert the progress indicator that I got from the website. You don't have to have these elements be in your actual FileMaker database. The ultimate result can be as simple as just the web viewer itself. You can directly embed all of the code that actually creates the progress indicator directly into a web viewer, and then you can copy and paste this element to any other FileMaker database where you might want to use it. And then you can control the background color. You can't really control the foreground colors because you cannot change the colors of a GIF, but you can if you're working with an SVG. So, with this merge right here that we took a look at, this base 64, what we have is simply an HTML tag that is an image This alt isn't really necessary, but it's there just in case. But you can see that the source of the image is using this data colon, and then this is what's known as a MIME type. So the MIME type here is telling this image tag what is it that I'm actually storing. And in this case, it's saying I've got an image, it is a GIF, and what follows is going to be base 64. That base 64 is going to come from the merge field. And so what happens is when we go into browse mode with this particular field, and I'll stretch it out, you can do the same as well. In fact, for those of you that are wanting to follow along but too lazy to type, I'm going to put this in the chat. And it looks like the chat doesn't like HTML tags. Yay for them. Let's try it without the actual tags. See if it goes through the chat. And it still doesn't. Oh, that's a bummer. Well, you'll have to copy and type this in. Fortunately, it's not too much to type in. When we go into browse mode, we can see that the merge field is actually being integrated. So the question now is, how do we actually get all of this text? Well, there's a nice little trick to do that. All we have to do is make sure that this particular text object actually has a name. So you can see right here as I zoom in that this object, I've given it the name of text.include. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, then you know that I like to name my objects according to their starting prefix, basically referencing the base object that it is within FileMaker. So a portal is a portal, text is text, field is field, and so forth. With button bars, I use a shortened version of bar. With tabs, I use tabs, sliders are sliders, and so forth. But with this object named now, what I'm actually able to do is to get all of the content that is in this merge object. So all I have to do is, if you take a look at this button, which I'm going to show you, if you add a button to your own database, this is a single step button. It is a script that we do not actually need to create a script to do a whole bunch of stuff. You can actually do a lot of things with single step buttons. When I double click this, we can see that it is in fact a single step, and we can see that it is doing a set field. We are setting to this result field right here, and what we're going to set is the contents of this text block. And getting that content is really pretty easy. It comes down to this one script step. So you can see we're using a set field. We're setting to the motion effects table, the result field, and we're using this function right here, get layout object attribute. Which layout object? Well, it's the text.include. That's what we called it. And what do we want from it? We want its content. So that's how we can actually get that into this field. So once we do that, we're pretty much close to home free. We are able to put this into a web viewer. I'll simply click Get It. You'll see that all the contents that were in this text box get moved into this field. I can now do a couple of things with this. First off, I could, of course, store it within a table within a field. So if I had a field called Settings, and I was using multiple different spinners in my, or progress indicators in my FileMaker database, let's say 3, 4, 5 of them, then I might consider creating that settings table and putting this into fields, and then being able to dynamically reference those values on those records within those fields in order to show whatever indicator I want. There's also the way that I mentioned where you can copy this, and in layout mode, you can actually, within the web viewer, directly paste that into the actual web viewer. And that makes it very portable. It makes it so that you can copy and paste this. So you'll see right here, when we take a look at the contents of this web viewer, that what we have is we are going to have a web viewer that is not going to reference an external web address. It's going to start with a definition that says, what does this web viewer contain? It contains data, and that data is going to be text/HTML. Again, this is known as a MIME type. So we have to create some HTML, everything that's necessary in order to show this progress indicator. In every HTML document, you have to have a starting HTML, and you have to have a corresponding closing tag. You also have to have an opening head tag, and that's going to be closed right there, and then a body and a body. So if you don't know HTML, that's really all that's required is those 3 tags, HTML, head, and then body, and of course their corresponding closing tags of the head, the body, and the HTML. And they're arranged in the order that you see here. Now all of the rest of the fields that you see here are helpful depending on where this content is going to be viewed with regards to the web viewer. The web viewer, if it's viewed on an iPhone, one of the things that the mobile Safari does is it does format detection, where it will automatically convert phone numbers into clickable links that you can actually invoke the telephone app. So I've turned that off right there with that particular line. Also, one of the things that we need to do is we need to set the viewport, which is basically the visible area of the web viewer, to an initial scale of 1. You can make it smaller, bigger. I don't know why you would in this particular case, but setting it to 1 is what we need to do. For Chrome, or not for Chrome, for IE, we can see right here that we're setting this content IE equals to Edge. And that basically means use the latest capabilities of IE. We used to need this for Internet Explorer 11 and 10, I believe. I don't know that we actually still need that. Now, everything in between these style tags is where we get to control everything about what's embedded in this web viewer. And in this web viewer, the only thing that we're actually going to be embedding is all of our content, which was in that result field, that result of the actual spinner. Now again, this is where you would actually replace, if I was to copy all that content from that field and then paste it right where I have this highlighted, then this would be a completely portable web viewer with a spinner that I could pretty much take anywhere. But you can see here, in between the style tags, I can control everything about how this web viewer is going to look. And in particular, the image is going to have the values of the width and the height. And that's where we get to control the size of the spinner. And so when we say OK, and we go into browse mode, and we click display it, you can see that the spinner is actually showing up. And that is the result of a script. So if you've got a long running script that it's going to take some time and you want to show some type of progress indicator like we've done right here, this is what it's going to look like. There's only one script that I have in this database, and you can of course copy along or follow along. And it's going to go like this. We are going to set a variable, and in this case it's a local variable. Now this is a good little trick. You can control the visibility of an object based on a local variable, and when the script ends, the local variable obviously disappears and goes away. Now you need to either control that at the end of the script, or if the end of the script calls, let's say, another script, a subscript, that does some type of refresh of the window, then by virtue of the fact that the hide settings for the web viewer is referencing a local variable, when that local variable no longer exists, it will actually disappear. The only other way to do this is if you were to use a global variable, and with a global variable you have to be conscious of making sure that it is either true or false. In this case, I could, if I had a subscript in this case, bypass these 2 steps. I could simply just set the first one and say, hey, I want this to be true, refresh the object. And now this one's a tricky one. FileMaker, I think it started about FileMaker 14 or 15. What they started doing is they started actually making it so that scripts would run so fast or not take into account different things, such as whether it needed to refresh the layout or not, because they wanted the scripts to perform really well. But because they were bypassing that refreshing step, some things don't actually refresh the way that you would expect them to. You would expect the web viewer to refresh, show that spinner just by the fact that you have a refresh object. It doesn't always happen. So sometimes if you stick in this really micro small pause resume for 0.01, which I don't even think FileMaker actually does, somebody can throw in the chat whether they know. I think FileMaker, the maximum duration that it'll actually truly pause for is 1 second. And then this pause is basically just sort of like a faux pause. It doesn't actually pause. It just tricks FileMaker into saying, you know what, you should refresh this because we paused. But it didn't really pause for 0.01 seconds. Now this is where you would replace all of your script steps. This is where all the long running script steps would do. I have a duration of 2 seconds here just so that we can actually show it. Then you can see that the web view spinner actually goes away. So how is that wired up? Well, that's the last thing that we need to look at. I'm going to go into layout mode here. I am going to select the web viewer. We're going to take a look at the inspector palette. We're going to switch to this fourth tab, the data tab. And then we're going to see right down here, we have a hide object when. And again, here is that little trick that I told you about. You can use a local variable. And of course, at the end of the duration of the script, the local variable will no longer exist. So in this case, what we're saying is we're going to hide the object when there is not a web view spinner. So in this case, there is never going to be a web view spinner unless the script that is actually intended to show the spinner is actually running. Otherwise, this web viewer will never actually show. And the cool thing is you can sweeten this deal up with the HTML. You get to control, obviously, putting in any text that you want. This is going to show the actual spinner right here, but I, of course, could actually put in any words that I want. I can style those words to match my background, whatever it is that I want to do. You can say loading ... with the spinner running. It's completely up to you. So the last thing that we have is how do we control the actual background? Well, the background is easy, and here's how you do that. Whatever color your web viewer is going to be on, we're going to select that background. So in this case, I'll select the body. I'll go to the Appearance tab of the inspector. And then when we select on our color, conveniently, FileMaker gives us the hex value for that color. So it's F0, F0, F0 in this case. And all that I'm going to do is I'm simply going to copy that. I'm going to go over to my web viewer, double click, and then you can see right here as I zoom in, the HTML and body, that's these two tags right here, I've given them some style guidelines. And that first off is I want a margin of 0, meaning I don't want to see any white space on the edges. And the background color is going to be whatever I specify. So in this case, you can see I've already pasted F0, 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 but let's just do something like CCDD EE, just for grins. And then we'll cancel out of that, and we will display it. We'll see our background has changed. It's no longer blending with our background. No big deal. We just go back in and change that back to what it needs to be. I think I still have that on clipboard. I do, and I say OK. And annoyingly, we get that little flash. That's the one downside of web viewers. Web viewers in FileMaker, it has to load the web viewer, and we get this micro flash. We get this little flash of whatever the color the web viewer is. Now, I've tried to solve this in so many different ways. If anybody in the chat knows how to solve this, please let me know. But the first time that you use a web viewer, if it has not been cached, it's going to flash that little white. And I don't know if that shows up on the video, but as soon as I click display it, what happens is the web viewer, the first time, if that hasn't been cached, it flashes all white. Then the HTML and the CSS takes over, and then it actually starts to render the layout. If anybody has a solution for that in the chat, that would be really awesome to know about. Yeah, the Eden popped in with the chat and said, make the background white, basically match the web viewer. So what the suggestion was there. Man, I wish the chat was actually working. I can't get that chat to show up. Let's see here if it's showing blank right now. You know what? I can always put the chat actually on the, let me pop out the chat and just put it straight on the desktop. That's what I should have done from the very beginning. So let's switch back to the desktop now. So there's our chat right there. Much more interactive when you guys can see, when you see the chat and what's going on. everybody's talking. I want to get that working with the video. Maybe I'll set up my video next time so that it actually shows the chat as I do the development of the solution in order to make this happen. Now, this gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of actually showing some type of progress indicator whenever you have a long-running script. I love doing this. Of course, you have all of those other progress indicators on the different websites, and you get to basically show the progress of whatever's happening as it's happening. You can see that I've got a couple of others in here. This is one that I actually implemented today where I was reading a PDF file, and that PDF file was being parsed. As it was being parsed, the script takes probably a few seconds, but users, man, as soon as you click a button, they are used to being able to just move on and get done with their work. So if you don't show that progress indicator of something going on, telling them, hey, you need to pause, then it's a little bit of a bad UI situation. And then here's another one that I have that I had integrated. Again, the larger version, and then just making it as small as you want by controlling the size. Completely up to you. In fact, we can go in, change the size right here. Let's change it from 24 to 34. We'll just make it a little bit bigger. So easy to change right there. One little change, and we're displaying a larger progress indicator. So the bigger you can go, the better, because that means you can use it from the smaller sizes and the larger sizes. And, basically just use these progress indicators. So I hope this has helped you out in terms of doing more with FileMaker, at least using these interactive things, using the freely available resources on the website. If you have any questions, then please feel free to put those in the comments down below. I'll do my best to answer those comments. Of course, if you found anything valuable and useful on this video, then please, by all means, subscribe, give me a thumbs up at the very least, and if you like more videos like this, go ahead and check out my website over at FileMakerMagazine.com. So that's going to be a wrap for this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching it, and until next time, happy file making.